Tonight on Reporting Scotland, how a woman's house was taken over by criminals and turned into a drug den. Laura says she was forced at knife point to smoke crack cocaine amid warnings that so-called cuckooing is rife in some Scottish cities.
I really thought they were going to kill me because they were force-feeding me crack cocaine. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just didn't know what to do.
Also in tonight's programme, a refugee charity says asylum seekers living in hotels here are worried for their safety after the riots elsewhere in the UK.
People should not feel that insecurity and fear in our streets.
It comes as the First Minister met community representatives and opposition leaders amid heightened tensions. Parents from secondary schools across Aberdeenshire say there's a shortage of teachers and it's affecting their children's education.
Coming up in the sport, Josh Kerr targets Olympic gold in Los Angeles after settling for silver in the men's 1500 metres.
And how baby Callan became Bella Drum's youngest fan after his mum went into labour at the Highland Festival. Hello, I'm Sally Magnuson. Welcome to Wednesday's programme. Has described being forced at knife point to smoke crack cocaine by criminals who took over her Dundee home. She was a victim of what's known as cuckooing, when another person's house is hijacked for criminal activity, including dealing, storing or using drugs. A warning that Graham Ogston's report contains details you might find upsetting.
The lady was sitting with a knife at my throat and said if I didn't hand over the bank card, then I was getting my throat slashed. Or if I didn't take the pipe, then I would get a punch or whatever. I was too frightened to tell the police. I didn't know what to do.
Laura, whose name and identity we've disguised, is a victim of cuckooing. A day of action by police in Dundee, helping vulnerable people like her whose homes are taken over by criminals. The full extent of the problem in the city is hard to gauge. Cuckooing is not recorded by police as a specific offence. Laura was initially befriended by a local couple. It wasn't long before they turned her home into a drug den.
I really thought they were going to kill me because they were force-feeding me crack cocaine. If my door was locked, they would burst the door wide open. I couldn't sleep, couldn't eat, just didn't know what to do.
After weeks of abuse, Laura was eventually rescued when a family member raised the alarm.
If they hadn't done that, I don't think I'd be alive today.
Laura was helped by Dundee charity Positive Steps, which has seen cuckooing referrals almost double in the last year, from 29 to 52.
There's people that have lost everything in their house, their furniture, their white goods, their bank accounts are emptied, there's been sexual assaults, there's been physical assaults, to the point where the family members have had tried to intervene and they've been assaulted. I had somebody who jumped out a window just to save themselves. Some people run out the house and never ever they never go back. They leave all their possessions that are left in their house.
Police raids have uncovered cases, but officers say the public should be vigilant.
Could it be, for example, a neighbour who have maybe become more withdrawn? There's maybe been changes in their behaviour. It could be that there's additional people coming and going from their address at different times of the day or night. It could be an increase in vehicles coming and going from their address, new faces, potentially accents from other towns out with Dundee.
Laura is now safe in new accommodation.
I just want people out there to remember, if anything like this happens to them, to go to the police. I still think about it. I mean, it's still there in my head, but I just get on with my day-to-day life. They made out they were my friends, but they weren't. They were evil, very evil people.
That report from Graham Ogston. A Scottish refugee charity says asylum seekers living in hotels here are concerned for their safety after the riots in England and Northern Ireland. In Yorkshire and other areas in the past week, far-right rioters have targeted accommodation where refugees are living. So far, there have been no similar scenes in Scotland, but community and faith leaders met the First Minister amid heightened concerns. Here's our political correspondent, Andrew Kerr.
Faith and community leaders on edge, arriving at Bute House in Edinburgh. The First Minister was seeking to reassure them. Evidence of fear in the community was real.
Yesterday we had somebody living in an asylum hotel saying, should I stay in the hotel or should I leave? We've had other people worried about their well-being. People should not feel that insecurity and fear in our streets.
Yes. Did you have a successful meeting in there?
Yeah, very successful, very open dialogue and a real coming together of all faith, all people, and everything was aired and everything was listened to.
A different experience for the Christian community at the moment. They want to provide support.
We have to work together and to support the communities of Scotland where all are welcome, that nobody is othered. And it's our commitment as the church to ensure that we support our neighbours, for we are all called to love one another, and that is the heart of who we are.
Then police chiefs arrived to brief the First Minister and a gathering of Scotland's political leaders, as John Swinney explained why he'd held these events.
I wanted to provide the forum today for faith leaders to come together and to show solidarity, which they do to all faith communities in Scotland, and for our political leaders to demonstrate the unity of purpose that we have, that violence plays no part in our society.
After an argumentative period at the start of summer with the general election, this is now a time for politicians to come together.
What we heard today was all of the party leaders in Scotland being united in condemning the violence that we've seen and working together to ensure that there is a consistent message, that we don't have misinformation that we've seen spread across social media.
Look, it's not a comfortable time, but it's not a comfortable time for many people right across the country. And I have seen racism and Islamophobia before. The one thing that's always reassured me is I know that we are an open, tolerant country. I know who we are as a people.
Scotland has so far escaped the violence and disorder seen in England and Northern Ireland, with police here monitoring developments.
As you'll be aware, we've received quite a bit of intelligence about potential protests all over the country today, and I'm certainly not going to add to speculation or give any publicity to anything in particular. What I would say is that we continue to have our enhanced policing operation, but it's community policing. It's about reassurance, it's about engagement, and should we need to escalate in any way, we will, but as I say, I'm not going to add to any speculation around that.
Scotland's streets remain free from disorder for now. As some become more fearful, the authorities continue to reassure them. Andrew Kerr, reporting Scotland, Edinburgh.
Some of the day's other stories now. 6 men have gone on trial at the High Court in Glasgow, accused of belonging to an international drug smuggling ring. Cocaine was allegedly hidden in deliveries of bananas bound for Glasgow Fruit Market. The court heard that the UK Border Force intercepted a consignment from Ecuador in September 2020 at the port of Dover. It contained 119 foil packages of cocaine. The 6 men deny all charges. Murdo Fraser has become the latest candidate to announce he's standing to be leader of the Scottish Conservatives. The Mid-Scotland and Fife MSP last stood for the leadership in 2011, running against Ruth Davidson. Yesterday, Jamie Green announced his intention to stand, joining Liam Kerr, Russell Findlay, Brian Whittle and Megan Gallagher. The former ABC building on Glasgow's Sauchiehall Street is set to be demolished 6 years after it was damaged by the second art school fire in 2018. Glasgow City Council says the notice was served to protect public safety after an inspection found continued internal deterioration. A consultation opened earlier this year on plans to turn the former music venue into a food hall and student flats. Parent council leaders from all Aberdeenshire secondary schools are claiming there's a lack of teachers in the area and they want action from the Scottish Government. They say a teacher induction scheme designed to encourage newly qualified staff to take up posts in rural and remote areas isn't fit for purpose. Ben Phillip reports.
There are 17 secondary schools in Aberdeenshire, like this one here in West Hill. And while a teacher shortage isn't unique to this region, there's a feeling from parent council leaders here that things are at crisis point. It's been a long-running issue. They are criticising the Scottish Government's teacher induction scheme, which guarantees newly qualified teachers a one-year teaching post in one of 5 areas of their choosing. Last year, Aberdeenshire Council requested 66 secondary teachers through the scheme. They were allocated 18, but only 12 turned up. This year, it's requested 44 teachers. 20 were allocated, but now only 8 are confirmed. And Parent Council leaders say the shortfall is having a big impact.
There's subjects that are just not getting taught in Aberdeenshire schools, which would be getting taught in the rest of Scotland. Likes of technical education, computing studies, home economics. You know, the teachers who are responsible for recruitment in Aberdeenshire schools are just withdrawing adverts because they know they can't get teachers for certain posts.
We've heard from Aberdeenshire Council's Director of Education, Lawrence Finlay, today. He described this year's teacher allocation as inadequate. Challenges have been highlighted, including many teachers simply not wanting to work outside of the Central Belt. There are also issues around retaining teachers who want to work here in Aberdeenshire. Aberdeenshire Council is calling for a full review into how teachers are allocated and ensure that rural areas can get the teachers that they need. The Scottish Government, it says it recognises the challenges around recruiting teachers in certain areas, highlighting it's providing new teachers with an incentive of up to £8,000 for opting to be placed anywhere in Scotland in their probation year. Ben Phillip, reporting Scotland, Aberdeenshire.
Tonight's main news again. A woman has spoken out after her home was taken over by a drug-dealing gang amid warnings that so-called cuckooing is rife in some Scottish cities.
And still to come in the sport, it's a huge week for Scottish football clubs in Europe. We'll hear from the Kilmarnock and St Mirren managers.
Of Greyfriars Bobby reminds us Edinburgh has a long tradition of dogs visiting graveyards. That could be about to end though. The City Council is considering banning dogs from its cemeteries in response to a petition from bereaved relatives. Dog walkers aren't happy. They've launched a counter-petition, as Richard Forbes reports.
Events in this Edinburgh cemetery could lead to a city-wide ban on dogs from graveyards. Bereaved parents have become so distressed by dogs urinating on graves and taking away teddy bears that they're petitioning the council to keep the dogs out. So far, the local authority has been reluctant to take that step.
We've tried to find a middle way of saying, yes, you can walk your dog here, but please keep your dog under control.
The campaigners, who continue to push for a complete ban, say the current rules aren't being enforced.
There's no patrols. The police say council business. The council say not enough patrols. It should not have been opened for cemeteries in the first place.
Tracy is among those who's against the ban and has signed the counter-petition. She's walked her dog in the city's cemeteries for years and says the quiet surroundings bring health benefits.
The research is clear that dogs as family pets are good for mental health. That in combination with going to graveyard cemeteries, which are quiet spaces, which are really difficult to find in Edinburgh, helps people ground, help people contemplate.
Owners of nervous dogs are also worried about losing peaceful places to walk.
Rather than a busy park full of dogs that are off-lead coming up to a dog that's uncertain, nervous, it's never a good experience for either parties.
So, why was Greyfriars Bobby so famous?
If dogs do get banned from Edinburgh's cemeteries, there's one kirkyard where they'll be particularly missed.
Rowie is the biggest selling point of our tour, to be honest with you. People don't book the tour for me. They book the tour to spend time with a dog, because a lot of our travellers come from overseas and they might have left their dogs while they're travelling for months. So it would be very disappointing to not be able to bring Rowie on our tour.
Whichever petition persuades the councillors tomorrow, it doesn't seem like the other side will take the decision lying down. Richard Forbes, reporting Scotland.
To football now, and the St Mirren manager Stephen Robinson says his players are so confident they believe they can beat anyone as they prepare to host Norwegian side Brann in a Conference League qualifier. It's a great time to be a fan of the Paisley club, that's for sure. A top 5 finish last season thrust them into Europe, where they've already dispatched Valor. And they got their Premiership season off to a terrific start by beating Hibernian 3-0. A full house is expected at the Smisa Stadium for tomorrow's first leg, and Robinson is backing his side to continue their fine form.
every game we go into, we expect to win. You know, it's not a game we go to Celtic Park, we expect to win. We don't always, we very rarely do, to be fair, but we have created that mentality. You know, the boys know if we're at the best of our ability, and the squad is used and utilised with everybody coming off the bench in the same situation, you know, and providing us with the same strength as the players that are coming off, then we don't fear anybody. You know, we certainly don't fear anyone, and that includes Europe. We believe that we can beat players, anybody on our day with the players that we have in this building.
Well, it's not just St Mirren in Europe this week. Kilmarnock face Norwegian side Tromsø in the first leg of their crucial clash tomorrow. And manager Derek McInnes is calling on his players to deliver big performances. Killie dropped down a tier into the Europa Conference League after a 2-1 defeat to Cercle Bruges in the Europa League. If the Ayrshire side can navigate their way past Tromsø, they would face Denmark's Copenhagen or Czech team Baník Ostrava in the playoff round.
Last couple of games is the first time my players have played in Europe for the majority of them, and I think it's exciting, and we've again reminded them today about, you know, it doesn't come round all the time. We want that to be the case, but in your careers it doesn't always come round, and there's a brilliant attractive tie to get into that playoff spot. We want to try and be that team, but to do it we're going to have to bring two big performances to beat Tromsø. I think they're a capable team. We can't think that anything other than big performances from us individually is going to be enough. We've got to deliver that.
The Scottish FA have appointed former English Premier League official John Moss as their first ever VAR manager. Moss refereed more than 250 Premier League matches before retiring in 2022. VAR has been operating in the Premiership for nearly 2 years and has proved controversial among managers, players and supporters. Now Rangers are in a great position to advance to the Champions League playoff round after an impressive draw against Dynamo Kyiv in the first leg of their qualifying tie. The Ibrox side played well throughout but fell behind to a first half goal from Andrei Yarmolenko. However, they fought back after the break and were rewarded for their efforts with the very last kick of the ball. Cyril Dessers sweeping home a cross from Václav Černý, and it sets Rangers up nicely for the second leg at Hampden. And despite being a player who divides opinion, Dessers is happy to let his goals do the talking.
Obviously, it would be nice to get a little bit more recognition for what you do, but I get the recognition inside the building, and that's the most important. And there are always some reactions from media or a small part of the fans, but obviously the bigger part of the fans, they give me a lot of support, a lot of love, and I'm happy to repay them or pay them back in these moments with an important goal in the last minute.
So it's shaping up to be an interesting end to the week, Sally, that's for sure.
Indeed. Thanks very much, Lewis. Now it's over to Laura McKeever to find out what's happening on BBC Scotland at 9 o'clock.
Tonight, an expert in crowd psychology joins us to try to explain some of the reasons behind the recent riots. We're going to hear from the Bangladesh Association in Glasgow and how the community here is reacting to the unrest there and departure of the long-serving Prime Minister. And breakdancing arrives at the Olympics on Friday. Some Scottish breakers will be here to show off some moves. We'll see you at 9.
Now, when it comes to forming musical taste, you can never start too early. And here's someone who should know. At less than 24 hours old, young Callan was back at the Belladrum Festival, where his mother, Kate, had gone into labour the day before. After the birth in Inverness, Callan joined brother Seamus and sister Peggy there for the rest of the festival near Beaulieu. And a happy family time was had by all, as Chris McLennan reports.
Meet 1.5-week-old Callan. He's settling well into life in the Highlands, but his entry into the world was a little bit more eccentric than most. That's because his mum Kate went from the Belladrum Music Festival to the maternity ward after going into labour on the festival's opening day.
When Darren went to get a beer, I was like, oh, I don't think you should drink that. I was like, I think we might be heading off pretty soon.
After leaving Belladrum at 5:30 in the evening, baby Callan was born just 2 hours later.
It still was in a bit of a daze, I think. It was totally shell-shocked, gone from thinking that we were going to be camping for the weekend to then oh, we've got our new arrival, which wasn't due until the following week. So yeah, just lucky we'd packed our hospital bag in the car with us.
And if their new addition hadn't brought enough excitement to baby Callan's siblings, the Belladrum regulars returned to the festival just 18 hours later.
We left the hospital about 8:30. got the kids again and kind of headed back out to Belladrum before heading home later that evening. So Darren camped with the kids, but I came home with the baby.
Many babies have been named Bella after the festival, but organisers say this is a new first.
100% youngest attendee we've ever had, and yeah, maybe we do need to look at a maternity ward on site, and yeah, I think we definitely, the family will be back on us. We've offered them tickets, and we look forward to welcoming them all back next year.
I think he'll be disappointed if he's not like celebrating all his birthdays at Belladrum now. It's one way to celebrate.
And who knows, perhaps baby Callan is destined for a career as a performer, but for now his family will be hoping for a quieter time over the next few weeks. Chris McLennan, reporting Scotland, Muirvord.
I'll bet. A woman from the Borders has set a new world record for the number of sheep sheared by a woman. 51-year-old Una Cameron from Bonchester Bridge near Howick sheared 517 ewes in 9 hours at an event in Cornwall. She passed the previous best of 458 sheep set in New Zealand earlier this year with over an hour to spare. Now let's go straight over to Callum for the weather. How's it looking?
Yes, sunny Murray was doing its thing earlier on. We had a mixture of sunshine and shower Sally, but Brawley at the ready once again for tomorrow. Why is that? Because there's rain coming in the form of some weather fronts. But today we did have that mixture of some lovely spells of sunshine, but then some blustery heavy showers, even some downpours up there in Knock in the Isle of Lewis. And why was that? Well, we had low pressure, the driver of our weather, to the northwest, driving in this showery, blustery, wee bit of autumnal kind of feel to things out there. That low will continue to drift north tonight, a swathe of strong winds in its southern flank, easing in the north later. Then for us all, a dry start tomorrow before, yes, the rain arrives once again, and once it starts, it won't really want to stop for several hours. But this evening, some late sunny spells for some of us in the east and south as the showers fade away. They'll continue to feed into Argyll, the northwest Highlands, the western and northern Isles. Overnight, they'll tend to become confined to the far north and the northern Isles. But it will still be windy, gradually the wind's easing down. Elsewhere, the breeze will tend to ease and become light overnight, and lows of 9 to 12 degrees Celsius. Tomorrow, we'll start on a dry, cheery note, some sunshine, particularly in the north and east, but it won't take long before the cloud layers spread up from the south. The rain arrives in the morning in Dumfries and Galloway and then spreads bodily northwards into the central lowlands, the southern Highlands too, so a very wet end to the day. The greens, well, that's never good, some intense bursts there, so a lot of surface water and spray and increasing humidity with that rain coming up from the south too. But you'll notice North Highland, Murray, Aberdeenshire stays dry until towards evening, but an increasing veil of cloud, while Shetland will be the place to be tomorrow. Lovely sunshine before the rain does arrive for you too as it spreads north tomorrow evening. Behind it, blustery southwesterly winds and rather drizzly within a humid environment. That's the jet stream for Friday. Very zonal west to east, 170 miles per hour away up in the atmosphere. Not bad if you're flying a jet back from New York to the UK. You'll get back in fairly decent time. But for us on the weather front, that's not good because plenty of isobars means windy. A good day for blowing a kite though. We'll have sunny spells and showers, most frequent in the north and the west. Could be the odd rumble of thunder. Least in the east though, where we might scrape up to 19 or 20 degrees at a push. That's you up to date on the weather front. Sally.
I did see that word high somewhere there. It was a wee bit south of us, mind.
September. Hopefully.
Thanks very much, Callum. And that is Reporting Scotland. And McAlpine will be here with your late news at around 10:30 tonight. But until then, from everyone in the team, do enjoy your evening. Bye-bye.